Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nemeka Onyeka Obireri. Permit me time in your space to discuss how we can transform and reform the Nigerian oil and gas sector to make it more efficient, to make it more transparent, to make it profitable. I don't know how many of us recall about the oil windfall under Babangida, the excess windfall that happened when the prices of crude oil went up so much in the international market because of the Gulf War. Nigeria saw massive inflow. For the first time in the history of Nigeria since 2015, Nigeria have never gained anything from massive price, upward price fluctuations in the crude oil international market. Why? Because our output had declined from a high level of 2.6 million barrels a day in 2010, 2011, 2012 to the current level where we are struggling to even meet our OPEC quota. In fact, at the time it was below 1 million barrels a day. Why is this so? And why do we have so much inefficiency? Why do we have so much theft? Why do we have so much criminality in our oil and gas sector? The answer is very simple. The opacity in that system, the lack of transparency, the lack of sincerity, and everything. That is why you see the oil majors quitting and exiting Nigeria. Nigeria can actually rejig and restructure and reform our oil and gas sector if we want to be very competitive in the market. Anybody telling you that the fossil fuel will no longer be useful is lying to you. Even over the next 15 years, the fossil fuel will still be very, very important for mankind. There are many byproducts of the crude oil that you cannot wish away. We've not yet discovered how to use water or any other product to drive the aviation aircrafts and all the other things that come from the fossil fuel. So the fossil fuel will be here for us in the next 50 years. Nigeria has an oil reserve of over 37 billion barrels, and we can actually ramp it up to about 45 billion barrels. Nigeria has over 202 trillion standard cubic feet of gas. We are a very rich gas nation, but the problem has always been on the structure and everything. If you look clearly, the only corporation in the oil and gas space that is doing so well without all amount of inefficiencies in the system. In fact, any inefficiencies that you see, they are outcome of exogenous factors from the government of Nigeria. The liquefied natural gas of Nigeria liquefied natural gas (LNG). It is so efficient because it is 51% owned by other private investors and 49% owned by the federal government with the NNPC. Thus, they are shielded from all manner of what I call political harness, all manner of manipulations in the appointment of their board and management, and even in the staffing of that corporation. They are one corporation that have been paying huge dividends to Nigeria, but we need to extend it holistically to the main cash cow, which is the NNPC. NNPC started before Petrobras as the Nigerian National Oil Corporation. Today, look at Petrobras. Petrobras assets holding size is about $174 billion. Petrobras last year did profit of over $36 billion. Petrobras revenue was over $121 billion. Petrobras control our oil output of 2.3 barrels a day. And you can see how efficient it is. But you know the interesting thing? Petrobras is listed on the floor of the Brazilian Stock Exchange. Petrobras is only owned 28.5% by the Brazilian federal government. Other institutional investors own the remaining 72%. And Brazil is as corrupt as Nigeria. But because their oil and gas operation is shielded from this kind of opacity we have in Nigeria, you can see where they are today. Look around you. Look at even Saudi Aramco. Saudi Aramco, as efficient as it was, yet decided to open up the space. They did an IPO, and they have a lot of institutional investors in Saudi Aramco, and which, look at what they declared last year, 120-something billion naira profit. NNPC, in fact, recently it was reported that they were owing almost about $3 billion unpaid PMS import. This year at a time oil is saying that $89 per barrel, $90 per barrel. The other day they were disputing in February the peak output figure. OPEC said it is 1.3. They claim 1.6. In an efficient system, we shouldn't be thinking about having this kind of nonsense. In 2019, Auditor General report showed clearly that over 107 million barrels of crude could not be accounted for. What about $10 billion? Do we want to stop this nonsense and fix this country and make it work? Yes, we can do it. And how do we do it? NNPC is 100% owned by the federal government of Nigeria. If you want NNPC to work like Petrobras, even more, what should the federal government of Nigeria do? Sell down 60% of their shareholding in NNPC. Get institutional investors, if you like, mostly local Nigerians, to buy up those shares and then list it on the floor of Nigeria Stock Exchange and London Stock Exchange or New York Stock Exchange. If you don't want even institutional investors to own that 60%, which is about $35 billion, you can decide to list it on the floor of the exchange. They can do two things. They can do divestiture of 50% and then do new issue of say 20%. That will enable us to dilute them even to 30%. Divestiture simply means they will bring new investors to buy them out. Offer for sale 60%. They can get either a Goldman Sachs or a JP Morgan to do it for them. They can, or Morgan Stanley. They can even get any of the Stanbic IBTC, First Bank, or any of them to do it for them, to do the book running. There are many investors that will buy those shares. If you decide to sell, the federal government decide to divest from NNPC, say divestiture of 40% and then new offer of the same 40% value. If we decide, we can generate almost about $50 billion into the valuation account. All these things that we are doing, let's raise MPR to 24%. Let's do control FX transaction. We don't need it. We can attract investment in this economy by bringing transparency. Do these two offer, do divestiture and new offer. If you decide you want to sell it to Nigerians, if you open up the space and break up the shares into $10 per share and open it up to Nigerians, you can say, okay, we don't want to sell more than $1 million to one person. Nigerians will rally around and buy up those. And let me tell you what will happen. When there is transparency and a removal of opacity in the way NNPC is run, investors will come in. Go and look at Aramco, how investors are chasing them with money. Go and look at Petrobras. If, for example, now we want to do exploration in Chad Basin, we want to do exploration in Benue Basin, we want to do exploration in Kogi, we want to do investors will say that it will not be like where Buhari and co will be chasing for crude oil where there is no crude oil. The investors, the private sector investors, will sit down based on good seismic reports and researches. You will see different deeper explorations. And two, this idea of us allocating oil blocks to individuals is one of the things that destroyed Nigeria. Today we have many billionaires, oil and gas billionaires. Some people who were tellers, some people who never had oil and gas experience, just because they were connected to military heads of state in the past, got oil block allocations from next to nothing. Now, of course, they got those who had the pocket to help them. That is why 1 million barrels of crude oil can miss in Nigeria today. Nobody will know. We have over 100 and something companies, all drilling oil from different quarters. So vessels can come from every corner to come and move crude oil. Going forward, we should amend the laws. Oil blocks should no longer be allocated to individuals. Everything should be consolidated. NNPC should be the sole manager of all the oil blocks and all the oil acreage going forward. If you want to play in the oil and gas industry, if you want to play also, buy the shares of the new NNPC that is listed on the floor of the exchange, that is only owned 40% by the federal government of Nigeria, 30% by the federal government of Nigeria, and 70% by private sector investors. If NNPC want to open new marginal fields, let me tell you, if NNPC was structured the way Petrobras was structured, we won't be having output still hovering at about 1.3 million, 1.4 million barrels a day. The private investors who own shares in that company, who wants to make more profit, will put fire on the bomb of whoever is responsible within the corridors of NNPC to make sure they ramp up output to nothing less than 3 million barrels a day. And they will do it. But why it is not being done? Because a lot of bureaucratic bottlenecks, a lot of public sector policy criminality does not allow efficiency and accountability. The board of a privately owned NNPC, majority owned NNPC, will tell the GMD, we are giving you 3 months to ramp up output to social level. If not, we will sack and dissolve the board. You see everybody ramping up and doing the right things. So let us do the right things if we want to fix this country. Let us look at what had worked in other climes. In summary, Federal government of Nigeria should divest 60% of their shareholding in NNPC. If it means just selling it to Nigeria so that maybe it doesn't go into the hand of foreigners. If you open up that space, Nigerians at home and in diaspora, looking at the numbers and the profitability, will fully subscribe and buy up those shares and own it. Nigerians in diaspora, even if you want to raise $40 billion, tonight will buy it up. And this company will be run efficiently. It will be owned by Nigerians and not by the few government officials who see NNPC or the Petroleum Ministry as conduit slush fund for their election racketeering and awareness. Let's do the right thing. This country is blessed. We can easily ramp up output to 3 million barrels a day. We can ramp up our reserves to 50 billion barrels. We can explore different. Let me tell you, a fully efficient, transparently and accountably run NNPC. We diversify into every other byproduct of oil and gas market in such a way that you will see NNPC reporting $121 billion revenue, just like Petrobras. You will see them declaring $50-60 billion profit. Shareholders will rejoice. Nigeria will, because the taxations and the royalties will collect from those output and all those stuff will be so huge for this country, and there will be so much job created. All these issues of crude oil being stolen will be stopped because we'll be able to hold our destinies in our hand. Thank you, and God bless you for listening to me. Share and let those who are in authority and power do the right things. Do the right things and let God be glorified and put Satan to shame. Thank you.